Welcome back to the show, my friends. I am your host, Eric Szilagyi. If you've had an uncomfortable experience and you'd like to have it shared here on the show, please get a hold of me at contact.uncomfortable@gmail.com. The world wants to hear your cryptid and UFO experiences. So please reach out to me and let's get yours on the next episode of Uncomfortable. If you haven't yet, make sure to like us on Facebook and Instagram, both at Uncomfortable Podcast 65. Once you get a chance to listen to an episode or two, please make sure to leave us a 5-star rating and review wherever you can. That alone is the one most important thing that you can do to help get this show out in front of more people. And with more people listening, that means more great experiences coming your way. If video is more your thing, then make sure to subscribe to Uncomfortable Podcast on YouTube, where you can get the video version of most shows. If that's where you like to listen to us, please make sure to click like and subscribe and hit that notification bell so you're notified of each new release. Take a minute and check out the Uncomfortable link tree. It's the single best place that you can find anything and everything uncomfortable, all in one spot. The link for that is in the show notes below. I've got a great show for you guys tonight. If you've been paying any attention to the sounds in the background of this intro, that should be a clue for you. It's a show that I've been very excited about putting together now for probably over a year, maybe even a little bit longer. But we were finally able to do it, get it all put together, everything lined up. I've got two guests for you tonight. They kind of go hand in hand at this point, not necessarily holding hands and skipping down the laneway together, but they are pretty much synonymous with each other. Coming back again for the third time to the show is author and adventurer Mr. Ron Morehead. You know the man. He's responsible for bringing us the Sierra Sounds. He's been in this world of Bigfoot for over 50 years now, and his name is pretty much synonymous with the topic. But that's not all. I also have for you a distinguished retired U.S. Navy cryptolinguist whose career spent over 30 years in the fields of foreign language and linguistics, an expert in analysis, communications, and language transcription. Mr. Scott Nelson is also with us tonight. We're going to delve into the relationship that is formed between these two men because of those well-known recordings and how they've reshaped the perceptions of both these men. So, if you're ready, let's get into it. So, if you would, please give a warm, uncomfortable welcome to Mr. Ron Morehead and Mr. Scott Nelson.
Thank you,
gentlemen, welcome to Uncomfortable.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Feeling very uncomfortable. I'm feeling very uncomfortable.
That was a golf clap in the background if you guys couldn't hear it. Gentlemen, thanks so much for doing this. This is something, Ron, I think I've talked to you about this probably over a year ago, and we're finally able to get it together. Sierra Sounds. I mean, when I say it's synonymous with Bigfoot, that's not an exaggeration. It's about as well known as the Patterson-Gimlin film, depending on what area that you're trying to investigate, right? You know, the finding pictures and videos, or whether or not you're trying to come up with sounds. So, Ron, if you would quickly just go through, when it happened, how it happened, and then we'll get into Scott's end of the story as far as how he found the sounds, and we'll go from there.
Sure. Well, it started for me in 1971. I was involved with a group of hunters and went up on the mountain with them when one of them came out with this horrific story about some monster being up there. And he was raised very religiously, Donald, and he just ran off. The next day, as soon as the sun came up, he got out of there because he heard these things, and he didn't know what to do with it, so he just left because he was very religious and didn't know where to put it in his paradigm. It just didn't make sense. So the wise one would go back, so I went back with him. He wouldn't go back by himself at all. And anyway, we walked in. He was like a mule anyway, but he about killed me getting in there. I thought I was in shape. I was in shape, but not for that altitude and for that distance and that kind of climbing.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's how I got started. Started running back and often as I could, but I get somebody to go with me. But we started taking tape recorders in and started recording these things when they came around our camp. 8 miles in the wilderness, about 8,400 feet in elevation, I think it is. And just a very imposing area to get to. But it's really nice once you get there.
So you didn't just happen to be lucky enough to have any recording equipment with you when these started happening. You started taking recording equipment up there because this stuff was happening on a fairly regular basis with you.
Yeah, I was 71, and Johnson Brothers had heard them before, and they went back up with recorders. And anyway, the other guys, 5 of them altogether. I made 6, but then it went down to 5 when Donald wouldn't go back anymore. So, but yeah, we started taking tape recorders up with us. And Al Berry, we probably invited him in 1972, and he's the one that really fostered the studies at the University of Wyoming, and he also did the run around trying to get somebody to give an unbiased professional opinion about the sounds. And it showed that they were slowed up, speeded up, slowed down. There's no 60-cycle hum. There's no, and it went above and below the average human range. This is Dr. Curlin's year-long report. It's in the book Man Like Monsters on Trial. And anyway, he said they represented, at least one bite of it, they represented an animal over 8 foot tall. Well, that kind of puts it out of human perspective, doesn't it? Or does it? Well, Al Berry, one of the guys, he's a guy who was investigating it. He was looking for a hoax, couldn't find one, but he had gone to Dr. Lieberman at Brown University and asked Dr. Lieberman if he would take one. Dr. Lieberman is a cognitive researcher who studies cognitive abilities in primates. And he said, only humans have the vocal mechanism for cognitive language, like we're talking now, sapient language. And that's where you can pronounce just about any word that you hear. That's what our brain does for us. And it wasn't until 2008, actually, when Scott Nelson, who's with us today too, he heard these sounds by accident when he's looking for something for his son, which he can talk about in a minute. But he thought he heard speech in it, and of course we knew they were talking to each other up there. But we thought that everything communicates. I mean, dolphins communicate, whales communicate, just everything. You see schools of fish running around all together, flocks of birds running around all together. How are they communicating? Well, they're not talking to each other. So how's that happening? Well, it's not with the same vocal mechanism that we have. We have something very unique as humans.
Correct.
So it's underestimated. I didn't know that when all this was going on. But anyway, Dr. Lieberman thought it was a former student trying to catch him in a trap or something, because he said he wouldn't study him. And so anyway, Al finally found Dr. Curlin at the University of Wyoming, taking one unbiasedly, so he would give his opinion if there was anything wrong with him. Al just wanted to know. He was an investigative reporter, had a master's degree in science, so he was a pretty smart guy. And him and I became friends after all this was over. Not over.
Well, Al actually took an opportunity to go through all your guys' bags and stuff while you were out, didn't he? Trying to find some mode of how you were hoaxing it.
Yeah, if it could. Yeah, he couldn't find anything because we're way back in the middle of nowhere anyway, and it's kind of be pretty difficult for anyone to get back there and pull this off without leaving some kind of sign besides their tracks. And that's all they left us was the prints, decomposed granite here and there. And so anyway, Al was stumped. He couldn't find a hoax anywhere. And everybody thought it was. I read the correspondence between Peter Byrne, Al Berry, and cryptolinguist back to the east here, Ivan Sanderson. And they all thought it was somebody pulling somebody's leg when Warren Johnson wrote the 23-page letter to Ivan Sanderson. And Ivan Sanderson thought, through the correspondence that I read, thought it was probably somebody's pulling somebody's leg. So he sent it to Peter Byrne, who was in Oregon at the time. And Peter said the same thing in a letter to Al Berry and said, if you guys want to go to talk to these guys, go ahead. It's in more in your area, because he was way up in Oregon. Al was in Redding, California. So he came down and talked to us, and we ended up taking him in 1972. So he started experiencing the same thing. And he got all wrapped up in it, but he couldn't figure out how anybody could be pulling that off. And he never could figure that out. He told me that it would be a lot easier if somebody just confessed and make this thing a hoax or something so I can get out of here. He couldn't explain it the way it was, you know. Of course, we started experiencing some unusual phenomena too. And I write about that in my books. So that's what got me into quantum theory, because Al had a master's degree in classical science, which is Newtonian physics, 1687. He said, you got to stay with science, whatever you do. There's some crazy stuff going on up here, but don't talk about it, because you're not going to get invited to talk anywhere. And him and I started talking about this stuff, but we kept all that close to our chest just because everybody laughed about Bigfoot in those days, you know, with there's not so much laughing going on anymore. So that's how we got the professionals on board with it. And a lot of people were seeing these things and seeing the same phenomena that we were witnessing up there at the camp. It just it's well known now, and it's pretty much, I think I've established in my last book, Bigfoot Unveiled, that they have to have a human component. And I say that without any apologies. If you got Dr. Curran says it represents an animal over 8 foot tall, you got Scott Nelson saying it's a language by the human definition of language, and you got Philip Lieberman at Brown University saying only humans have that ability, that has to put a human component in it, to me. Then you got two geneticists who had a DA study thumbs down by academia because of it had a human component in it. Well, no, I think academia better wise up, because these physicists are right. One of them was in 17,000 feet in Bhutan, above Bhutan in the Himalayas, and the other was Dr. Ketchum in Texas, had 108 samples taken to her. So anyway, it's gotten quite a bit going on, and nobody's able to debunk this stuff because it's real, number one. And anyway, I never thought 50 years ago I'd be doing what I'm doing right now with you tonight, Eric. But I think you had me on. I like talking about it.
Well, I'm thrilled to have you on again. It's always a wonderful conversation with you. As far as the experience has been, 50 years plus, do you look at it as a whole? Do you look at it as a positive experience?
Absolutely. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
It's put me on a track of researching that I never would have been on before. And just trying to find out how everything works, how the unknown really works, and how we have to try to find it. Everything's got an answer to it. Everything does. And what we experienced up there had to have an answer. So I started looking into quantum theory and found out from Dr. Christopher Brer, West Texas A&M, that from the atom throughout the cosmos works under quantum physics. Just we live in our three-dimensional environment, which only have three densities. And that's what we live with, that's what we deal with. Everything has to be measured, predicted, and everything is Newtonian physics, which we all learned in 5th grade. But you get into quantum theory, and it's out there, and it's involved in everything we do. And it really gets a little spooky, but it is understandable.
It does. It does get spooky. Mm. It does get spooky. There's some weird stuff. Stuff.
Yeah.
And
you can't see, feel, or touch. That's.
I mean, my show, I've, over the last 4 years, I cover everything from, I spoke with a demonologist out of Kalamazoo, Michigan. I spoke with a reverend in the Church of Satan, which imagine a Catholic raised kid having a conversation with a guy who heads up a church for Satan. That was incredibly uncomfortable. But I don't shy away from, I don't shy away from the weird stuff. I've had experiences after my dad passed away, which was obviously interacting with my dad 9 to 10 months after he passed away. So those things, I've had enough experience where I don't feel like I have to prove it to anybody. I enjoy talking about it. I can still talk to somebody who had a similar experience and pull things from it and say, That makes sense because I had that happen too. But man, it is such a different thing when you get into the Bigfoot community and you start talking about the weirder aspects of people's. I just spoke with Shane Corson, who, by the way, said to make sure and say hi to you tonight. He and Todd Neese both said to say hi to you guys. But Shane certainly had a wonderful conversation with him. But he tends to steer away from talking about that stuff because he hasn't experienced it. I experienced some weird stuff, and so I think it's natural for people to steer away from talking about it if they haven't experienced it. But yet at the same time, if you're throwing that out with all the bathwater, then are you actually taking a good hard look at everything? And I think the answer is no. I think you have to take all that into consideration.
Right.
It's part of the puzzle.
Well, they should, but I think they've built a paradigm around them in a box on the shoulders, and they can't sway away from that. If they'll lose their colleagues, they'll lose their funding, they'll lose a lot of respect in academia, because
that's what it all comes down to.
If I can interject something there, Ron and I, if I can just say quickly, Ron and I, for the first 5 years of our collaboration, we had an agreement that we were not going to talk about the woo-woo, otherworldly stuff, because at that time, it was just speaking about the fact that they had a language was way beyond where a lot of people wanted to go. Yeah. So we had an agreement in all of our, for the first 5 years, all of our expeditions to the Sierra Camp and the stuff that happened up there, and at all of our conferences where we spoke together, we said, no, we're not going to talk about this, right, Ron? No, not yet, no. But there came a time, Ron will remember, there came a time, I don't remember which conference it was, we looked at each other in the eye and said, we can't, to try to keep this to ourselves, to try to downplay this, it's starting to feel like we're lying. It's like a cover-up. So that's when there actually came a time in me and Ron's collaboration where we looked at each other in the eye and said, no, we can't. We have to tell the truth. So that's all we've done ever since.
And I think that's admirable. I think,
I've always told the truth.
At a point.
Well, yeah, but
half of it.
Yeah. No, I know that, Ron. No,
I've always told the truth. That's sometimes I just didn't put everything out there.
Right.
Correct.
Really?
And I think that's fair.
Well, I try to be, because you can't hurt anybody but yourself if you try to kid somebody.
True.
Anyway.
So, Ron, one more question before I get over to Scott. Had you had any, at the point that you had everything that you've released as far as the Sierra recordings go, had you had an eyes-on experience up until that point? Had you actually laid eyes on something in the woods, or did that happen after you had recorded? So you had a pretty good idea
during our remark.
You had a good idea what you were dealing with.
And we thought, well, it had a big foot, we know that, and they were big, we know that, but what they were, we don't know to this day what they are. It might be a Bigfoot, a type of Bigfoot, but it might just be pure alien. We don't know, because it's so unique and so different than what most people hear a big yell or scream. They want to know if it's a Bigfoot or not. And it could be, but the only way you do that is get it evaluated by the sound technician, see where it falls on the graph. If it falls with some other type of animal, or if it's unique in its own right. But I saw what made the sound when they made that samurai cry. Behind Bill and I were up there. We were going to the camp that night. I had all supplies in, and I saw it run through the woods. And bright moonlit night. It just wasn't even dark yet. It was just dusk. And
Yeah.
there was two of them, I think, a male, adolescent, and a female down by the creek, down below Camp Scott, at that creek down there, and not our spring, which is right next to us, but and this big male made this big cry up behind me here and shot down through the trees, two way down there, which is a good 100 yards, and I saw it, and I mean it was so fast and smooth, and I couldn't. No human can run like that. It just looks so weird running down through there. Bipedal, definitely standing up. Can't tell you any details about it, but
Such a common report. The movement of them is it's always static. They're either standing, rocking back and forth, or when they are moving at any pace, it's incredibly fast and like beyond organically fluid.
yeah. Well, I would, good way to say it. It's what I saw, what I remember seeing, and it was just an interesting night. I'll just say it was an interesting night.
Does it annoy you with all of the attention that has been given to UFOs, UAPs, orbs, drones, everything that's in the sky? Does it annoy you that they're going after trying to prove this, and they've got this other thing that's running around in our woods and showing itself to people for hundreds of years, if not more? Is it a little annoying that why aren't they putting any effort and research into?
No.
It annoys me. I want them to go after. I want them to show both.
I'm not sure I want the government out there looking. I'm not.
Good point.
Yeah.
Well, I don't get annoyed, but I think it'll all happen when it's supposed to, and these things will let themselves be known when they get good ready. I think there's some enigmas associated. I know there's enigmas associated with the ones we dealt with up there, and I don't know if it's how they were made, what made them, what alien might have put the genome hex on or whatever, what's the DNA? They've been manipulated, I think, from a troglodyte. But I got way back off my religious time, which I was based on religion and how things came about from the Bible, thinking that was the only thing there was. But even Scott can tell you, because he also taught comparative religions in his classes. But I started looking into way back in the Sumerian tablets, into the Anunnaki and cuneiform texts, and you get into how the stories really happened, and it really combines very closely to what we read in our Bible. Just a lot of things have been manipulated over the years, and so I don't have a problem with talking about it. Just my issue is trying to get people to understand that there's more going on than what you can see, feel, touch, or measure. And if you can't measure it, well, I mean, how far is it to the end of the universe? Come on, you can't measure everything. And but Newtonian physics dictates that. You got to repeat it in a paper. I got a comment from a guy here recently. Want to know why Scott Nelson didn't put his findings up to a scientific community and let them diagnose it, formal paper and do peer review. That's what I told him. I said he's not going to subject his work to some people that don't understand his work. Scott Nelson is an artist. He's not a regular linguist. Huh?
I'm not a scientist. Yes, I'm a language guy. Just a language guy. Yeah.
Anyway, it hasn't bothered me at all. Well, people can do anything they want to. I saw what I saw. I think what I think, and I say what I want to say. That's how I am in my 80s now. And You know,
And we
if you
appreciate
believe it,
that.
I don't care, but it's the truth. It's the truth.
Yeah. So Scott, let's move over to you now for a little bit. At some point, you come across these recordings.
Yes.
Go into that and
It was quite a moment of chance. My son Stephen, who Ron knows very, very well. He and I were in my classroom, and he wanted to do a paper on Bigfoot. Well, he needed to do a paper. I said, pick a subject. There's a new thing called Google, and we'll Google this out, right? So he said, well, either Bigfoot, UFOs, or Loch Ness Monster. I said, okay, well, pick one. So he said, okay, Bigfoot. So I literally Googled Bigfoot on my, my government school laptop, right? And it came up. It took me to the BFRO website, Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, and I said, that's awesome. So we started reading these reports, and Stephen said, Dad, what do you think Bigfoot sounds like? And I had no clue because I was never a Bigfoot guy or a Bigfoot researcher. Grew up in the Rocky Mountains, so I heard a lot of stories, but I was never into it. So I did remember some 70s B grade Bigfoot movie. So I said, oh, well, Bigfoot sounds like this. Oh, whatever. And Stephen took one look at me and said, no, Dad, that's not what Bigfoot sounds like. So I said, well, let's Google it. So I Googled it, and I swear to God, that changed everything because it took me immediately to Ron's sounds on the BFRO. And what caught my eye is the first thing it said was samurai chatter. Now, to a language guy like me, chatter is not what squirrels do. Chatter is not what coyotes or monkeys do. Right? Chatter implies language. So I clicked on that, and I heard immediately, for the first time, language being spoken. Now, it was so fast, what we call in linguistics, the prosody or the rate of deliverance was so fast that Stephen couldn't get it. But I heard it because of I had already spent 20 years in the Navy speeding, listening to the human voice on tape and speeding it up and slowing it down in order to recover all of the phonemes and the sounds, get it down on paper. So I think it was that professional experience over all those years that allowed me to hear something that my son could not hear. So I played that first clip, and I went back, and Stephen could tell right away there was something going on in my mind. I went back and I played it again. And I went back and I played it a third time, and Stephen said, Dad, what's the matter? What are you doing? And I told him right then and there, I said, Stephen, there is language. There is language in these sounds. And he said, Dad, what are you talking about? It sounds like coyotes fighting. I said, what? I said, I know it does, man. No, there's language. No, Dad, it sounds like monkeys fighting or something. And I told him right there, I said, we need to get a hold of these tapes and slow it down like Dad used to do in the Navy. And that was it. That was it. That led me on a 2 or 3 week detective journey, which I'm not a detective, but somehow, through a few phone calls, I found Ron. After about 40 minutes on the phone with Ron, I had him convinced that I was not another crazy guy. And in 3 days, I had 2 CDs in my mailbox. I had Alan Berry CD, and I had Ron's CD in my mailbox. And that started everything. But there were three things there immediately that I could tell that are, the foundation of everything that I present when we go out and actually talk about this stuff. Three things. Immediately, I knew I was listening to a language. Even though I couldn't slow it down, I could tell, right? And immediately I could tell that it was not human. No way in hell was this human. How did I know? Nobody has listened, except maybe the guy who trained me in the U.S. Navy. Master Chief Ralph Blessing might have listened to more of the human voice on tape than myself over the years. So I knew this was not a human being. The way that we just, classify human beings.
Right.
I mean, we can certainly say they're human-like, but it was not us. And the third thing that I knew immediately is that it was not fake.
And what was the telltale sign? What was the telltale sign that it wasn't fake?
Quite a few things, actually, but the first thing that I always talk about on that is my professional experience. For 20 years, I was trained in the most deceptive communication practices in the world. I was a Russian. I worked the Russian problem. I was a Russian interpreter, Persian and Spanish. So, and the Russians, all those years, were the very best at their deceptive practices. And I could tell right then and there that, no, this could not have been faked. Now, there were a few other things that were embedded in the sounds themselves that I knew could not have been mass-produced or could not have been, faked by another human being or something like that, right? And this was before I knew. I had no idea about Dr. Kurland's report from 1974. 14 years before I even got involved. No, way more than that. I'm sorry, 1978 it was. His report was 1978. Right, Ron? Yeah. So that was many years. That was many years before I got involved. I was willing to go on record and swear that this could not be fake. This was before I knew that Dr. Kurland had already proven that. Dr. Kurland was a doctor of sound specialty. He was a sound specialist. I am not a sound specialist. I'm a language guy. There's a difference there, right? He can get on there and put all his equipment, and analyze it in that way. I don't have that ability or that capability, and I've never been interested in that. I'm just a language guy, and I could tell you immediately that it could not be faked. And then later on, over the years, I have come up with other reasons why I know it was not fake.
How many hours do you think you've logged studying those sounds?
Several thousand because my whole job for 20 years in the Navy was the collection. First we collect it, right? First we collect the communications. As we collect it, we tape it, right? Then that's only the beginning of all the work, because then the analysts like myself, we have to go back. We just have a raw tape. And in them days, they were reel to reel, right? And we have to go back and transcribe it. That's why I'm an expert in transcription, is because of all of the hours that I put in actually transcribing the human voice on tape. And so we transcribe it in those days, by speeding it up, slowing it down, getting all of the single sounds, what we call phonemes in the language, the single sounds. And we were taught to transcribe languages that we did not know. We had to be able to transcribe these and send them back, send a transcript back to NSA for the analysts over there to take a second look at. So we would spend, we would tape something that might take 25 minutes, half an hour to record it. And then we would go back into the lab and we would spend 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours in transcribing this to get it perfect. With all of our transcriber notes and everything else, before we had what we called a final product that we would send back to NSA. So that's why I accrued so many hundreds and hundreds of hours with these on. This is what we call the cans. This is our tool of the trade, the cans. And when you're sitting there collecting or transcribing, we called it sitting the cans. What's that, Ron?
Let me interrupt just a second. I had several people saying they knew what these things were saying, but Scott still don't know what they're saying, but he knows it's a language. But he was vetted through the Foreign Language Institute in Monterey, California.
The Defense Language Institute. Yes, the Defense Language
Institute.
And
I got a letter back from him, and he said he's more than qualified, especially if he's a 2-time graduate from that school, and is more than qualified to transcribe an unknown language. So that was a big deal, and that really put him somewhere. I didn't even know guys like that existed. And even to this day, I don't know that he really exists. It might just be a...
So Scott, in the process of speeding up, slowing down, isolating, were you able to come up with what would be the equivalent to vowels or consonants or?
Yes, absolutely.
You were.
We have yes. I authored an SOP. Okay, it's not a scientific paper. It's a language standards of procedure based on military transcription standards of procedure. I call it the SPA, or the Sasquatch Phonetic Alphabet, in which I detailed every sound that I could detect and created a letter, if you will, that represents that specific sound. And they have over 40 consonant sounds and about 9 or 10 different vowel sounds.
I just had this hit my brain here, so I gotta get it out, or I'm gonna forget.
Sure.
So if you have that broke down to the consonants and the vowels, if you were to take those and what Ron and Al recorded and put that into AI, an AI generator. If you were listen though.
Go ahead. I know where you're going. Me and Ron's already have been over this, but go ahead.
Have you already talked about this?
Yes.
Did you do it?
We actually had an argument over it, kind of, because Ron's like, "Why not, Scott?" And I'm like, "No, Ron, you can't do that because." Go ahead, Ron. You give your side, and I'll tell you.
AI can only deal with, like I said, to somebody who was AI knows all the languages that exist right now, but Bigfoot isn't one of them. It's all the languages in the world.
Correct.
That people that talk, and it would have to use those languages to try to figure out what this sound was. And it wouldn't match up with any of them because it's its own unique language, whatever it is. So AI has not developed enough. It has to get, I think, sentient, if it ever does, or cognizant or conscious or something, before they can ever figure that out. But really, the best way to find out what they're saying is to make friends with them, have one of them come in and have coffee with you or something.
It's the only way. That's the only way. So Ron brought this up to me. He
You got
said,
to point
we
to a
had
tree
some
and say,
guy
ooger,
on a podcast, actually, tell him that says, hey, Ron, just send me all your tapes and I'll translate it for you because I know how to use AI. And I'm like, Ron, oh my God. No, I said, no. And I said, so we went over this for a few days. I said, look, AI can only give you it can only search known languages and give you bits and pieces of what might be in a certain language. It cannot go into a completely unknown language.
Well,
And
and I
that's what
guess
I
that's
told. And this is what I actually have this because I wrote this down because I said, Ron, this is what will happen. And sure enough, I went on the internet that very day and I found another podcaster. But she called herself the Hot Mess Mama. And she had actually claimed, I swear to God, Hot Mess Mama, and she claimed that she already translated several of the Sierra sounds that they found on the BFRO network, right? So she goes on, she goes, yeah, there was Russian words, Korean words, there was some Azerbaijani and some Indonesian. And I said, Ron, exactly, this made my point. So she said, yeah, it said a couple words in Russian, and then it changed to Pashto Persian language. And then it changed to Russian, and then she says, oh, and the last word was the number 7 in this hill country Afghani language, Pashto. And she said, oh my God, if there were 7 men on that mountain at that time, this scares the hell out of me. And I'm going, Ron, see, this is how ridiculous the whole idea is that you can take a completely unknown language and just plug it into AI and it will just tell you, it will just translate it all. No,
well, see,
it
and that's
cannot be
and
done.
that the idea behind that thought was I understand what you're saying and I agree with it 100% that it would not be able to make sense out of a language that's not known. But I guess my thought was, could it recognize enough that might help point to a source language or something that was similar where you could almost kind of form a thought of their language may have originated in, Asia, or it may have originated in Russia, or
that is a good thought.
Mongolia.
However, we get that takes us straight into the whole idea of cognatic languages or cognatic words and phrases. The problem that we've had because I and Ron in some cases together, we have presented these tapes to people of every language group, virtually every language in the world. And immediately what happens is it's a process of pareidolia, okay, where people they hear something that is totally random and foreign to their mindset.
but they
their
make
paradigm.
a pattern out of it. Yeah.
They try. Pareidolia literally means the human mind has a great capacity to do this, to attempt to make some sense of something that makes no sense. So the first guy I took it to was my best buddy at Jerry Masuda, native Japanese guy. I took it straight upstairs to him. I said, listen to this, Jerry. I said, and the reason I took it to him is because it was actually called samurai chatter, right? And there is that guttural staccato that we remember from the samurai TV show, from the 80s or whenever, 70s. So I took it to him and he said, oh my God. He immediately recognized several words. I said, so what is he saying? He said, I got no clue. He said, I have no clue. But that was the first taste that I have had of what was going to happen, in that every person we played these sounds for recognizes some words, including English speakers. If I played it for you now, you would be going, oh my God.
Yeah.
He said it's time for breakfast. Or, oh my God. He said, hey, where's my beer, woman? Or, we would say, I'm teasing now, but so I played it for Cherokees. I played it for Cheyenne. I played it for Ute Indians, Shoshone. I played it for my Chinese students, Persian people, Pashto. I played it for everyone. And inevitably, every single one of them comes up and says, oh my God, I hear my language. So, now I know that was a long answer to a short question.
No.
Could you find a root source of a language? Is not with AI.
Okay.
We would have to do like Ron says. And I've told him, Ron's mantra, constant from the first time I met him, is, Scott, they were trying to talk to us. I want to know what they're saying. And I said, Ron, and I felt bad about it all these years. And Ron, we're not going to know what they were saying until we can sit down with them the way we did with Amazonian tribes to recover their language. You cannot understand or actually translate a language without the confirmation of the speaker. It's impossible to do it. So that's why a lot of people are mixed up between the idea of transcription and translation. So what I do is transcribe it, get it all on paper so that we can prove that indeed it is a language by the human definition of language. But to translate it, we're going way off the cognitive loop there.
Okay, so with what you've come up with, has there ever been a time in your head, maybe you never spoke it out loud, maybe you never told Ron about it, maybe you never told anybody else about it, has there been a time where in your brain you fashioned what you believe is being said?
Yes.
Would you share it?
It's all over. It's all over. And because here's one of the things that the Navy, at least, and the Navy and the Marine Corps, what we were taught. In fact, that guy I mentioned before, Master Chief Ralph Blessing, was part of his curriculum. That when you're sitting the cans and you're collecting this stuff, right? We're not just listening to the words. We're listening to the emphasis. We're listening to the emotions. We're listening to the inflections. Because, again, in all languages, an inflection can be either a statement or a question. You have to know, was it a statement or was it a question? So we were taught to listen to all of those things. So yes, even when I present, the tapes at conferences, there's places where I go, I think they get into an argument. And I believe
That's what it sounds
that
like.
they were getting into an argument as to how are we going to go down and get that stew. And there are things that we can say. Now, however, you cannot come out and definitively say, here is the translation of what they were doing. Now, Ron and I we've been inundated over the years with, people contacting us or telling us at conferences, I know exactly what they were saying because it's in my grandfather's Cherokee language. They were saying, ooh, ooh, ah, ooh, ooh, ah, whatever. And this is what they're saying, but no. So it's all speculation.
So you think the brunt of the conversation was how in the hell are we going to get that food?
Well, I think there's
Or where's
part of it. Go ahead.
I was going to say, or they might have been looking for the salt and pepper to put on us. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, to me, in one part of it, it sounds like the juvenile and the female are talking very calmly about, hey, I'm hungry, Mom. Let's go get some. Again, speculation. I'm hungry, Mom. Let's go. Hey, let's go get that food. They're telling us to come get it. They're saying, hey, Biggie, come get some dinner. Right? Now, that's an invitation in any language. Right? So I think the juvenile and the female were talking about doing that, and then the male comes in and he gets pissed. He goes off on the female, and then she hollers back, and they holler back. So I'm, in my speculation, I think she was arguing, look, let's just go get the damn food. And he's like, no, goddammit, I'm the head of this family, and we're going to do it my way. Really.
Yeah.
So, I mean, yes, are those speculations all over. Then, I mean, there's parts where, on Al's tape, there's parts where there's an aircraft flying over. There's an aircraft flying over, obviously a military jet, because it was flying too low. So it was flying over, and the big male Bigfoot, he goes off. He starts screaming and pounding shit and screaming, so even Al said this, and Ron, they said that, boy, it sure sounds like he was pissed off about that aircraft flying so low. And I listened to it. I have to say, man, yeah, you don't have to hear specific meanings of words to know that he was pissed off.
Yeah.
Right. But translation, no.
Do either of you guys, do you think that there's a good possibility that even though we don't know what they're saying, we don't understand their language, do you think they have a better understanding of what we say?
I do.
Yes.
And how do you think that came about? And how would that come about?
Well,
it makes sense.
Vibration.
Go ahead, Ron.
Well, that gets into my quantum theory. Because I think if you get on the right vibration, you find the right frequency of anything, you can understand it and change it, actually. And that's Einstein. He says that comes from Paul Dirac's in 1933 antimatter equation, which won the Nobel Prize. And if it's antimatter, and it means energy and matter can interchange. We are energy at the most minute form. And it can change. We will change because energy can't die. So when this biological body dies, it changes form. And that's according to all theoretical physicists go with that equation.
Right.
Determine that. Einstein went with it. And he wouldn't even speculate on what he's going to turn into, but we all got to turn into something someday. You burn a table or you burn whatever you want to do, it's going to change forms. And if you can find the frequency of anything, you can change its matter. I think these things have the ability to tune into your frequency. That's how they talk to some people. I don't think they could talk to me that way because I'm too analytical. I'm very analytical, and if I can hear what somebody said at that time, I think I'm less analytical now because I think I understand I don't know what they were trying to ask me that night, but there's definitely a couple questions in there, and I have to this day to know what they're asking me. They might be saying, "Are you going to be on Eric's show in 2025?" Well, thought that might light it up a little bit.
The way I normally answer that question is that it would be natural for them to understand way more of our language, because especially for a species whose sole means of survival is the avoidance of humans. That's the only way they survive, is to avoid us. Otherwise, what would we do to them, right? So
Right.
they are so, as far as we, the research community will say that they are so observational, and it means it's so important to them. So it would make perfect linguistic sense that Spanish, for one, Spanish has been on this continent for 550 years. So it would be natural for them to speak or to understand quite a few Spanish words. English has been on this continent for 450 years. Right? So it would be very natural for them, when it's their sole means of survival is to observe and almost make mental notes. What does it mean? I would think they would know what we meant when we said a gun. Go get your gun. Or whatever. I would think, or food. Food. Simple words. Food.
There's a lot of information from Native Americans that say they've crossbred with their indigenous people, and they've taken their women, and that goes way back a long way. And if that's the case, then some of them could have picked up some language from something like that. If they took a 12-year-old girl or something like that, or 13, and raised them in their culture, their language, she would have known that, but she would have also known her language. And that maybe how some of them picked up, because I believe a lot of our hybrids from that. In fact, my grandmother's sister back in the 1890s, she got kidnapped by a Native American, by a Native tribe, and they never saw her after that. That was
Really?
one of our family stories. And
Wow.
so if they do that, and I have no doubt that they do, because Native Lore says they do, and you got the Patterson track, and you look at the tracks alone, my tracks up there, the tracks that we've seen year after year, are different. They're more splayed, they're bigger, they have 5 toes go right across like that, where the Patterson track is more human-like, a really impressive arch on it. And it's got toes that are slanted down just like ours, very human-like. Right. And I think that was a hybrid up there. And, well, we're all hybrids. You don't want to get into the physics of it or the biological part of it, because something made us, gave us what we have. Anyway, I can rattle on about this for a long time.
I almost wonder, I've got 2 theories, prevailing thoughts, call them whatever you want. One is, like, so many people report that cloaking ability, that they can disappear, they can blend in, and I think we probably touched on this back when we were talking about your book, Ron. Like, if these creatures, if their vocal mechanism is that powerful that they can reach higher than the human level and lower than the human level as far as going into the infrasonic area. If they have that kind of control over their voice and they can change frequency, I wonder if it's not that they're necessarily changing their frequency so that they can't be seen, as much as producing a sound frequency that disrupts the way we perceive what we're seeing.
That's good.
Making them harder to recognize, harder to see.
Good comment. Yeah.
We know how powerful sound is.
Say
again, Ron?
I say, we know the frequency of light, and they would have to change that frequency so that we wouldn't see them. Frequency of light, 430 to 770 terahertz. That's the only frequency we see in the light frequency. And if they can manipulate that, what you're saying could happen. They can manipulate that within us. They can find that frequency. Maybe they know that frequency. I don't know how they do what they do. So many things that we don't know yet.
It takes me back to a documentary I don't know that it was a full length documentary. It was a show. It was about sound, frequency, stuff like that. There were two gentlemen that I remember, and they both worked in the sound industry, and they were trying to kind of break the code of what Stonehenge was. So they were granted permission to take a bunch of their equipment, a bunch of amplifiers and speakers, into the middle of Stonehenge. They were able to set everything up, and what they did was they turned their speakers to the large megalithic pillars that make up Stonehenge. And then they went from playing all the known frequencies through their equipment. And obviously there were high frequencies that they couldn't even detect with the human ear. Then there were frequencies that were causing them pain because it was within our hearing range, but it hurt to listen to it. And then as they continued to work their way down, when they got into the subsonic frequencies of where infrasound lives, the one gentleman had to leave. They had to abandon the experiment because he got very ill. And during the interview, when they were talking about the things that he was experiencing at that time, he said that his vision became very blurred, and everything, the shapes of everything started to alter because of the vibration that was in his head, his ocular orbits. And I always kind of go back to that, and it's like, if these things are as powerful, and I did an interview with a woman. My listeners will recognize this from my 5th episode. She was a Native American. She was presented to me as a Native American witch, which at the time I thought meant like a shaman or a medicine woman. But she was actually a Native American practicing witch. And there were a lot of weird things happened that night. But one in particular was that she early in the evening, long story short, I wanted to call this episode, I wanted to find a hook to get people to want to listen, because this was only my 5th episode. So I said I was going to name it Dinner with a Witch, Date Night with a Witch. And she only lived about 30 minutes away from me. So I offered, in order to get the interview, I said, I can bring my equipment if it makes it easier, and I can do this, at your leisure. And she took me up on that invitation.
Yeah.
I just lost my light. Now I can't, now nobody can see me. So early on, we had gone down the road from our house, and it was a curve, about a 90-degree curve. And it had one of those metal railings, that would keep cars from driving off the road. And it was wooded area. And she said, real quick, just pull over here. So I pulled over, and she got out of the car. My window was rolled down, and she goes, that's where my big boy lives. And I said, your big boy? And she goes, yeah, SETI, SETI. Well, the only thing I ever knew SETI was, search for extraterrestrial intelligence. But she claimed that SETI was an Egyptian name, and she named the Sasquatch that lived on that property, she named him SETI. And, I'm into all this stuff, but at a point you kind of, okay, sure. Yeah. Well, she stood a few feet away from my car. As I said, the window out her door was open, and she put her hands up to her mouth, and she did a whoop. And one came back out of the woods. And I was like, come on, no way. And so then we had dinner. We took it as an opportunity to get to know each other, so we'd be more comfortable in the conversation. We got done eating. We went back to her house. We set up everything to record. And I don't know, maybe a half hour into it, we were in this room, and the one wall of this room was all windows. From left to right, it was probably 12 to 15 feet of nothing but windows from floor to ceiling. And it looked out over over some farmers' acreage. But right out that window across the street, you know how farmland, they'll keep like an acre where it'll still have trees and maybe a pond. I don't know if that's left that way to help wildlife or what, but there was one of those areas, about an acre square, outside her window on the other side of the street. And she was talking about all these different things, and she was talking about her practicing of witchcraft and all this stuff, because she wasn't just a Native American shaman. She was literally a practicing witch. And she was in the middle of a sentence, and she was just getting to the end of pronouncing the word "and" to continue her sentence. And there was the loudest, most bombastic noise. And Scott, we were both wearing cans like you're wearing. It happened. I pulled my earphones off. She turned around and looked at the window. I was looking at the window. And then she looked back at me, kind of with a smile on her face. And I said, "What the hell was that?" And I immediately got chills. And when I tell you I had goosebumps, it was on the knuckles of my fingers. It was on my torso. It was on my back. It was everywhere down to my toes. And she said, "Did you hear that?" And I was like, "Hell yes, I heard that." What was that? It was so loud. And the immediate thought that went through my brain, I had two thoughts. First thought was, fuck, I left my gun out in the car. And the second one was, shit, I got 40 pounds of dog food in my back seat. I have no idea why those two things came into my mind, but that's exactly what hit my brain. And those goosebumps, those chill bumps, it didn't take too long, and they kind of dissipated. But then it came back. Only it wasn't so strong. And then it dissipated again. And then it came back again, and it was less strong the third time. It did that like 4 or 5 times, and it was like a wave. We got done with the interview. Some other weird things happened, not related to that. But she walked outside with me. I was loading my equipment back into my car. And as I was putting my equipment into the back seat of my car next to the dog food, she stood at the hood of my car and looked back towards the back of her property, which was wooded. And at one point, not too far back there, it kind of went down into a little bit of a ravine where there was a decent river, a wide stream, I guess I'd say. And then the other side of that stream went straight up. It was all wooded. She stood there at the hood of my car. She put her hands up like this again, and she goes, whoop. And about 5 or 6 seconds later, maybe 10 seconds, there's a whoop comes out of those trees. And then a couple seconds later, off to my right, much further off in the distance, I hear another one. And I was like, what the hell? Now, Ron, this happened about 25 minutes away from the brewery that you spoke at Bigfoot and Brews for me at. It was that close to where we were at. And I got in the car. The road was very S-curves, a lot of S-curves, and it was dark. I would not turn my bright lights on because going through each of those curves, my headlights would go into the woods. And I didn't want to see a set of eyes staring out at me. I called my son, and I said, holy shit, dude. I said, you got to talk me off a ledge here. I said, I don't know what the hell I just experienced. I have no fucking idea what just happened. And he's like, what are you talking about? So I started describing it, and he's like, well, what did it sound like? What was this? What was that? What was this? I started asking a bunch of questions, and I was very frustrated because I couldn't really describe what it was I heard. All I could do was really describe like how it made me feel, and then the waves of the goosebumps. All I could say was it was very loud, and I kind of got annoyed with him. I yelled at him. I'm like, God damn it, I don't know what it was. I'm just trying to figure it out. And I got home. It was late. It was around 11 o'clock. But I immediately took my my recording device and I put the recording onto my computer, and I found the spot, and I got to that spot, and I isolated it and I played it. Now I had over $1,000 worth of recording equipment in that room with that woman, and that was so loud that I ripped the headphones off my head because it was jarring. And what recorded on the recording was a very slight little ooh. That's all you heard. And you hear our reaction to it. You hear me say, "What the hell was that?" And she goes, "Isn't that cool? That was him." And I'm like, where the hell is all the noise? Where's the loud, bombastic, just jarring, holy shit, what was that? It wasn't there. And the really, 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 really weird thing, and I don't know that I've ever talked about this, is when I isolated that MP3, that audio file, I didn't even save it as a wave. I've got it on my computer as a wave, but I saved it as a small MP3 file because I wanted to send it to my son so he could hear what I was talking about. On your iPhone, I saved it as a file. And if I were to hit play on it and hold it like this, you can barely hear it's there. If you didn't know it was there, you would probably miss it. But if you took this phone and you took it 10 feet away from me and listened to it to yourself, I would be able to hear it better than holding it up to my ear. And that doesn't make any sense to me at all. And the reason I found that out is
is there any chance your recorder could have a limiting factor on it that would have taken it down like that? Where if it gets so loud it drops it. Good way to check that out.
Or what you really experienced was the wave. That you described, and it was way more loudly. And I mean, you felt it internally, where it was not audible.
Yep. I think that's what it was, Scott. I really do, because it took me like 3 or 4 days, and all of a sudden it hit me. I was like, holy shit, I got zapped. That's what people are talking about when they talk about being zapped, because you hear people talk about it and I'm like, what the fuck do they mean? What does that mean? What is zapped? I mean, zapped sounds electrical, but then I started thinking about the goosebumps and the hair standing up and coming in waves. And I was like, holy shit, that's kind of like an electrical charge, like a static discharge, so I don't know. It was ultimately bizarre and still one of the weirdest things I ever had happen. I wish like hell I could figure it out and explain it, but I was glad to have the experience, but it's been frustrating. So,
wow.
So,
oh, interesting.
What I'd like to do now, and I almost, what's that? No, I have not. Sense? No, I have not. I've had a couple of offers to go back out onto that property. She doesn't live there anymore. I don't know who owns that property, and I'm not willing to just go out with anybody and run the risk of getting caught on somebody else's property. I don't know. Even at the time that she lived there, obviously, I know that the property she was on, but like the woods where she claimed that it lived, I don't know whose property that is. To me, it looks like it's part of the farmland or something. But regardless, it would be an interesting trip, I believe. But I would want to do it. I would want to do it legally and with the people's knowledge that own the property.
Yeah.
So having had these experiences, Ron, you out there in the Sierras, you've seen things moving through the forest quickly. You've heard these things. You've recorded them. Scott, you find them by chance. You get Ron to send you the CDs. You spend thousands of hours studying this stuff. What I'd like to know from each of you is, Ron, you go first. With what you found out through Scott's interpretation of these things, how did that change? Obviously, you guys became friends because you're buddies. You've gone up there together. You do shows together. How did it change you getting the confirmation from Scott that this was indeed a language, and what did it do to the shift in your paradigm as far as your belief of what these things were or were ongoing?
Now, at the time, it didn't make much of a difference other than, hey, there's somebody special here that says their language. Well, we knew they were talking to each other, but we didn't realize this. I didn't realize the significance of language until I kept going further and further and further. This has kind of been an ongoing process with me, just trying to learn more about how things happened that we were witnessing up there. But at the time we were up there, I had no idea what we were dealing with, really, other than just some big ape that knew how to communicate with each other. I didn't realize the significance of speech, and I do now, and a lot of other things I would have done differently now that I didn't do then. And we just underestimated these things, thinking they were just some big ape out there in the woods. And that's what a lot of researchers still think. That's why they're putting up these trail cams and all that stuff. Well, trail cam companies are getting pretty rich off this. It doesn't seem to be bringing anything. Maybe they'll get lucky one of these times, but maybe they'll get lucky. I don't know, but I don't believe in trying to trick them to start with. I just want to find out more about them, because I think what we're dealing with up there was something very, very unique and very special. And I think they're trying to tell us maybe how special we are as humans, because they can't do what we do. We can't do what they do. They don't pay taxes. They don't go to school or nothing, but they know more about how to live than we do, probably. Whatever they are, they're special. But we have been given a dominion on this planet to do what we will. Unfortunately, a lot of people choose to try to shoot one to bring in the bigger buck, dollar.
How do you feel about that?
The dollar prize. I don't like it. I mean, I wouldn't do it. We weren't going to shoot one up there unless we were attacked or something like that, but we realized that probably wasn't going to happen, or it would have already happened. They could throw a rock and knock us right off one of those benches, logs that we set on up there. No, I think that's, I think, well, if you want to listen to Justin Jamea, I think it's his name, in California, just north of where our camp was, well, several miles north of it. He claimed he shot one, and his interview, you can listen to his interview. Tendency is to believe him, but he never found the body. They never could find the body. And I think when there are three-dimensional density, like we are right now, they have to respond and live by our three-dimensional rules. That means they can be shot. They do eat. They poop. They procreate. They do everything that we do when they're in our world. But can they get out of it through frequency? That's my question. Can they get out of it some other way? Personally, I think some of them can. I don't think they're all the same at all. Like I say, the Patterson Bigfoot, I think, was a remnant of some crossbred indigenous people more than once. And a lot of them are that way. And I think a lot of them maybe don't even talk anymore. Maybe they just scream and yell for their kids. I don't know. But I don't know, if you get too close over to a female with a child, they probably will throw a rock at you, but they don't hit you. They just want you to go a different way. They don't want to interfere with us. We are here for one reason, the experience. We're here to experience things and respond to the experience with, I gotta say it, not even Sunday. We gotta learn how to respond to our experiences with love and compassion, not as a victim or not with anger. Once you learn those rules, our vibration can go higher, and we can advance to what we're supposed to be like. I write about the manifestation code in my last book, Tesla 369. And I think we got to go through that to get to where we're supposed to go with humans. I believe the Anunnaki, way back into cuneiform text, they took the troglodytes and manipulated the DNA and made Bigfoot. They made all kinds of things, including us. And anyway, we are very special in that they made us in the image of a very high frequency being. I get off on this, and I don't want people to feel like I'm religious or trying to start a cult or something, but it's very, 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 very interesting to me. And I love talking about it like we're doing now, but I've talked to church people, people religiously, and there's a lot of them back in the Bible Belt where I live now in North Carolina. They just sort of cross their arms and up, there ain't nothing going on but Jesus Christ. You're going to go to hell if you don't believe that. All that stuff. I mean, I was raised in that. I know where they're going through, so I don't even talk to them anymore. They don't have the want to ask me a question. If they ask me a question, I'll answer them the best I can. But I'm not going to force anything on anybody because it's the way I believe. And some people don't believe it. That's okay. Everybody has a choice. That's what we have as a free human being, choices. You choose to go that way or that way. And that's where I would get into the coherence of your pineal gland into your heart and brain has to be coherent. It all has to be balanced. That's what the chakras are all about. If you don't balance those things, you'll never listen to what your heart says because that's the connection we have with the universe, the source of everything. And but it has to, our brain, all this thing on our shoulders here has been conditioned over time. Been conditioned of, we know that language, we know this, we don't know that, we don't want to believe in that, we believe in that. And first thing you know, you've created yourself a paradigm which you will back out of, like a lot of academia have already. And I know some of them will. You could have a Bigfoot go up, walk, and pat them on the back and start talking to them. They wouldn't believe anything. They just wouldn't. They've created their whole box, up here. It's that way or there's no way. But if they don't learn how to,
for a lot of people,
step out of that,
and for a lot of people that box is airtight.
We've all been conditioned. I really like a parachute. If it don't open, it ain't gonna work. We have to open up our box and let our mind understand there's things we don't know that we have to learn. And quantum physics, I think, is the key to learning. Like Tesla said, well, one man calls God, another one calls the laws of physics. Then you got Edgar Mitchell, who said that it takes classical and quantum sciences together to have clear perception. And if you want clear perception, you got to understand that there's laws going on out there that don't conform to classical science. And what I experienced up there in the woods, and the other guys too, it does not conform. And you got to have an answer for it. I think quantum physics delving into that is like disappearing. I had too many people tell me they disappear. I used to put them on the shelf for the funny part, but I don't do that anymore because there is a rule behind it. It's Paul Dirac's antimatter equation, which 1933 was established. He got the Nobel Prize. I mentioned this before. It's a direct exchange between matter and energy. And you got that established physically by CERN in 2012 when the Hydra Collider changed the particle into energy. You won't see energy, but you can sense, you can detect it. And people just have to understand there's so much more going on. Our eyes only see within certain frequencies. Sound is only certain frequencies. A bear can smell through a can of beans or peaches. And that's been established. And you don't. You don't hear ultrasound or infrasound, but I have no doubt that
you talk about frequency and you talk about frequency and vibration. And one of my second crazy theory to go along with, them creating the issue with our vision is.
Yeah, that's a good one, by the way. I like that.
Thanks.
Not that it's real, but it's possible.
Right. But the other thing is, I kind of wonder if we've got it backwards. I wonder if we are, like you go to the Anunnaki and I think there's enough texts that indicate there is something that another culture came here and something obviously manipulated us to be us.
Yeah.
Because when you take every creature on this earth, everything from a little beetle all the way up to a giraffe or an elephant and everything in between, and you put us there, we are the one thing that does not look like it belongs here.
Yep.
You've got hair covered, you've got scale covered, you've got claws, you've got nails, you've got teeth, but when you look at us compared to anything else, we don't line up. And I understand the thought process behind we were created in God's image. But it makes me wonder, so often you talk to people, I talk to people, hear experiences, and people seem to think they get the impression that these things aren't very happy about us. They're not particularly interested in interacting with us in a, hey, it's me, how you doing, kind of thing. So I almost wonder if they are the original us, and they were kept as a control, whether it be by alien intervention, whether it be divine intervention. I almost wonder if, are they the original us, and there's a bit of a detest by them towards us, and they don't,
they were made for,
because so often I get, I make the big mistake of I watch a lot of news. I pay attention to a lot of things that are going on in the world, and we got iPhones. We're the smartest we have ever been right now because we have every answer at the end of a Google search that we could ask for. Right now we have AI and we have all these things, and most people would look at that as an evolution. We're becoming more. Our technology is advanced. But when you look back at ancient ruins that we can't figure out how they were manufactured, we can't tell how those stones were fit together to the preciseness where you can't even fit a human hair behind it. I almost think that we are going through a process of, we as humans, Homo sapiens sapien, a process of de-evolution. And I think in our original state, maybe we had the abilities that Bigfoot, Sasquatch, maybe that was really us.
Eric, we do. It was. I mean, something messed with our telomeres, and that's cut our life expectancy short. Our DNA has been manipulated. Because if we kept going and lived 1,000 years, we know we really progressed a lot more. These things, I think, were made by the Anunnaki, and we were made by the Anunnaki sometime later, eons later. I mean, this has been going on for hundreds of thousands of years on this planet. But so many, many, many aliens have been here. You don't know which one did what to what. There's a whole hybridization program going on, still going on. We are hybrids. We really want to get into it. But even the Bible said, let us make man in our image. Well, there's not a word, there's not a singular. If you get into the cuneiform text, Elohim, which is the word for God, is never mentioned in the singular fashion. It's always in the plural. And it's been the Romans and different interpretations that have brought it down into something that they think our brain can handle. Here's a God up here. Somebody in the sky who watches everything everybody does in here, and he wants you to do these 10 wonderful things. If you don't do all those things, you got a very special place that's hot, and you're going to burn, you're going to suffer, you're going to horrible place forever and ever and ever. But he loves you.
Well, The name God,
that's George
the
Carlin.
name God was mentioned one time in the singular in the Bible. And it was when Jesus is on the cross, he goes, Eloi, Eloi. This is the singular for Elohim. Elohim is the plural, and you're right, almost everywhere else. It's always plural. But when he was on the cross, he spoke. He said, Eloi, Eloi, lama sabachthani, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? So it is one time, and you're right. Most everywhere else, it's always plural. But that one time, he used that, at least in the Hebrew of that time.
That's really good, Scott.
The only time that I know of that it was used singularly.
Can you imagine? That's the biggest thing I remember about our trips up. The biggest thing I remember about our trips up to the camp is you got into that stuff. How Christ picked out the different apostles, and it just,
boy, those trips up there were so.
You get all the way back in the Constantine.
Yeah.
Oh boy, fun! Scott knows a lot about that stuff, and you don't know it till you get up there with 101. And I just kept going with that because it fits with everything that I've learned as a Christian and biblical over here. Except I was always taught, there's God up there. You better watch out what you do. You're going to get sent to hell. Well, no, that ain't how it works. We are made in the image of very, very special, high potential being. And I think we're special in that regard. And I want to tell people that because I think we have some special times right now when they need to know who they are and what they're all about. So there. Offering.
What I said earlier about growing up Catholic, I believe in God, I believe in Christ. I'm not sure exactly what that is, right? They could be alien, they could be exactly what we've been told. I don't think so. I think it's something more mysterious and more wonderful than what anybody could write down in a book. But it is so strange that, even at 59 years old, and I'm not a practicing Catholic anymore. My religious, my belief, my faith has become a much more personal thing for me than having a need to go into under a roof and profess it with other people. But man, when you're faced with making a decision, and it might be a little bit wrong, or like that Catholic upbringing, boom, it comes right back really quick, and it's like, man, if I do this, I'm going to hell. I know it, and my 59-year-old brain says, no, I don't think it's that. I don't think it works that way. But that kid in me still, it pops back up, and I'm like, oh shit, better not.
I used to always ask the question when I was involved in churches, who's going to be in charge of hell? Who's in charge down here? Anyway?
That's when you were looking for the application for the job.
First of all, it's not like that. I don't believe.
So Scott, let's turn over to you now. We got about a half hour left, and then I'll let you guys go. But kind of the same thing that I was asking Ron. Mm-hmm. Once you tore into this, I know you don't talk about it much because it happened so organically and so quickly once you entered into looking into this, but you had a sighting. How did finding these sounds, how did it change your life? And has it changed it for a good, or has it been very negative?
It's complicated my life, that's for sure. But it couldn't have complicated my life in a better way. Like I say, almost immediately in my schoolroom that day, my whole paradigm changed. everything about the way that I saw the world. I was a philosophy guy, a language and philosophy guy, so I was open. I was always open to aliens, UFO, whatever, right? Because if you're a philosophy guy, you have to be open to possibilities. But when that happened, that it immediately changed everything in my life. Then when I got the tapes, took me 4 months to transcribe all 90 minutes of them. Then the first thing I did was get in a car and drive to California to meet Ron and Al. And that became very, very important to me. Immediately. And Ron welcomed me into his house, and Al's sitting there, and he knows I'm an old Navy man. First thing he did was hand me a beer. Right? And we sat down, and the first thing that we started talking about is, I says, you know, the thing that has me puzzled is that I cannot believe this, all of this at the time. I'm talking to them, you know, this happened 35 years ago. I cannot believe that I'm the first guy that realized that these creatures were talking to each other. It's not because by that time I had read every Bigfoot book I could get a hold of, including the new one, Sasquatch Meets Science or whatever. I read everything I could get my hands on because it was so new to me. But I said that to Ron and Al. I can't believe nobody else has figured this out, that they have a language and they're talking to each other. And Al and Ron, I swear, looked at each other and looked back at me. And Ron said, we always knew. We always knew that they were speaking a language to each other and that they were trying to speak to us as well. So that was a very enlightening moment for me. But I would say virtually every time we went up on that mountain, 10 expeditions, 5 of them with my son, and one of them, my daughter, also accompanied us. And every time we went up there, it had a life-changing moment. Not because we were always surrounded by weird things, or many times they weren't even there. But just being up there with Ron and in our philosophical conversations, we became, when you take any 2 guys or any group of men who endure the difficulties, any kind of difficulty like that, you become bonded. Without a doubt, you become bonded. And then the thing, you're up there for a week, and we've got nothing to talk about other than philosophy and religion and science and the possibilities of all of this. You know, I don't think there was a single time I came down off that mountain where I did not feel transformed in some way. And then we find out, one of the first couple times up there, that our birthdays are 2 days apart. And a few years, right? But not many. But his birthday is 2 days after my birthday in June. So, and we've started to realize, oh my God, that's why we are so alike.
Wait a minute.
June 11th.
Wait a minute. June what?
And June 13th. You gotta be kidding me,
June 12th.
man. What? Wait. June 11th?
Swear to
June
God.
12th? June 13th?
June 12th.
What? That's what I'm talking about, blowing your mind with these little.
And then President Trump's June 14th, I think.
That is so weird, man. It's all of these little synchronicities that cannot be explained. To me, there's a reason that we are brought here, that just even the 3 of us, that we are brought here at this time
Yeah.
and place. And maybe that it took us 4 times.
There's the reason you took
Right,
Steven
you
up
know?
there so he could.
I swear to God, man. It's too weird.
That is
Wow.
weird. Very weird.
But,
What were you going to say, Ron?
oh. So, anyway, what I would, yeah, it's changed my life very, very, very strongly, and also the life of my son, Stephen. It has changed a lot for both of us. Stephen is now doing presentations up in Telluride, Colorado. Oh yeah, yeah.
Is he? That's
So
fantastic.
yeah, you cannot
Oh, really?
go through this without it
Steven,
changing.
I cut my Achilles. I was trying to dig a hole up there one time with this little military shovel that collapsed on me, and I went down on my Achilles heel and cut my heel. I couldn't walk. I mean, I really could not walk on that leg.
Ugh.
And Steven carried my pack down. I had a stick, and we worked the rest of the day. We worked our way down that mountain. Man, that was a trip. But I take my hand off to Steven. I'm glad he was there that time.
Steven
So I think if I
has
had a
helped
message
us
to give out,
a
I
lot.
would say just everybody respect what we got on this planet. Don't be messing up. Got to stop the warring. Yeah, more than once.
Yep.
In fact, Scott wants to say he
Yeah.
saved my life one
Yes.
time when a horse threw me up there.
Yes, I did. And Stephen saved your life twice, and he saved my life once. That last time, he got both of us down off that mountain. The last time we went up there with Dave Polides.
What are kids for?
The what?
Oh, yeah.
What are kids for?
Well, he wasn't with us then.
Yeah, Stephen got you and I both down.
Was
Yes.
Steven with us then?
Yes, he was. Remember, he did all the sound thing for Dave and his camera.
Well, I got a good memory, Scott. It's just not very long.
Yeah, he was the one. He
Oh,
was
that's
the
right.
one
Yeah,
that he would take you down and then hike all the way back up and get me and make sure I got down. All the way down off that mountain. Because remember, you decided you couldn't take the horse down.
Certain spots
Oh,
up
yeah.
there. By the way, there's a documentary coming out on the Sierra Camp this fall
Oh,
by Brad and Jill, the Renaissance production. I want to give out a
Yeah.
plug because that'll be pretty good. It's going to be over an hour
Absolutely.
long. It's really about the Sierra Camp, and they do a good job. So everybody watch for that one.
I just saw a promo
yep.
poster for
Brett
that
and Jill Remens. Yep.
just
Yeah.
earlier today.
Yeah, they finally, first and only time that Bill McDowell and Lewis Johnson have been interviewed ever. And there's only two left, really. David Johnson, Warren Johnson's youngest son, has Warren Johnson's collection of tapes, which he's also turned over to Jill and Brett to look at and listen to and corroborate with what I have and what Sarah sounds. If they were recordings that were done at the same time under Warren Johnson's tape recorder that Al Berry was doing. That's a good deal.
I now have those.
A lot of people think that
Are they the same?
somebody else is backed up in a pickup. They have them. They copied one.
Ron, are they the same?
Did you get interviewed by them?
Are they the same people?
I'm sorry? Yes, I have those tapes from the Johnsons on hand now. I have not got into them to try to transcribe them, but those are all new to me.
Oh.
Yep.
Did you have a question, Eric?
Oh, yeah.
I missed.
I had two things I wanted to bring up. The people that are making the Sierra Sounds documentary, are they the same people that did the
Yes.
A Flash of Beauty? Okay.
Yes.
Great. That should be good then.
This will be their.
The other
this
thing
will
I
be
wanted
their
to say,
big one, though, I think.
yeah,
Yeah.
they did a great job with the Flash of Beauty. I was
Good.
impressed with that. Yeah. The other thing I wanted to say is that I do have two recordings, and they are both from the Yankee Springs area of Michigan. It's in the Lower Peninsula. It's a little south of Grand Rapids, Michigan. And the guy who recorded them gave somebody permission to share them with me, but did not give me permission to ever air them.
Okay.
But I'm telling you, Ron, when I listened to those, I had to go back and listen to the Sierra sounds to make sure that parts of those weren't the same as your recordings. They are that similar.
Mm.
But what I will say is I think there's a difference in the quality of recording equipment. Obviously, there's several years in between yours and theirs. So I think the recording equipment is a little bit better. And my guess is that the subjects were a bit closer than what you guys were dealing with. But man, I'm telling you, when you listen to those,
of course,
it's insane how close it is to what Ron has. So I'm going to reach out and I'm going to try to get.
Yeah.
Say again.
Well, yeah, that'd be good to have some
collaboration.
And I know that I got a sound from Ohio one time that Al Berry called me and said, "You got to listen to this. Somebody plagiarized our sounds." And I listened to him. I said, "Yep, I'll go through our sounds. All the ones that we'd let out. I checked them all, and they were different. They sound like when you first hear them, they sound like they're our sounds, but they weren't. There's no signature.
We've also received several that were plagiarized from our sounds. We've also had guys, send tapes to me and to Ron that we take one, listen to them, and we go, "Oh my God, no, that's on the second side of the Barry tape or whatever." So yeah, they've tried to hoax us several times as well.
Yeah. I'll try to get permission to share that with you guys.
Is just put the thing on a graph and see how it compares. That's what I did, because I'll do that before I accuse them of plagiarizing, because I want to make sure
of course,
all right. And like the Ohio one, that one I definitely checked that out, and let that guy see if that guy let Scott look at him. Listen.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
we've always done that, Eric. Whenever we started doing that right in the beginning, when we started presenting our study, we would solicit submissions from the Bigfoot community, because they're the ones that are out in the woods. Yeah. So we've always, every time, solicited submissions, and I've received several dozen. But most of them not very good. A few of them pure and simple hoaxes. But a couple of them very good. So I've always been willing to listen. And then give my true professional opinion.
Yeah. And a lot of people hear a howl or a scream or something that they've never heard before, and they think it might be a Bigfoot. So I asked him to send me the sound, and if it's just a howl or whoop or something like that, I don't bother Scott with that, because he's a language guy, and he wants to hear a morphine stream of words, like we have on our tapes. So I sent him out to the Olympic Project in Washington, and there's a guy out there, Dave Ellis, who will do that, and he doesn't charge, I don't believe, at all. and he will identify it, compare it to other animal sounds. He's got it all on a graph, and he can see if it's the same one or not. And if it matches something else, like a coyote or something like that, he'll know it. Even though it may sound like a coyote, it might be above what he has on his graph. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that.
Ron, do you have a release date information for the Sierra Sounds for the documentary?
Only the documentary. It's only going to. I've been told it's this fall, but it's hard to pin them down because they're still editing, and that's a big deal. He did a great job on it. Brett is, and
yeah,
I'm going to see him at Bigfoot reunion here in 4th of July, I think it is, out on the West Coast. So we'll talk more about it then. But I think they may come out with another trailer for it. Because the trailer they got now is just the one with me and Bill and McDowell and Lewis Johnson and my daughter Rhonda, and who's had sightings up there, and also Dale.
Yeah.
Him and Rhonda about the same age, and they used to go there with Bill and I. They had some experiences up there. So anyway, the interview is only 3 minutes long, I think. I mean, the trailer or something like that. And it's worth listening to. It's a good one. And so there. So Scott, I know everybody's going
to know. Scott. Yes.
Scott.
Yes.
If you don't mind, we got about 8 minutes left. Can I talk you into talking about your sighting?
Yeah, like I say, I think I told you this before when you first asked me about it, and the reason that for many years I never talked to anybody about it. Now I'm where I don't care. At this point, I don't care. I will tell anybody about it that pushes me to it. But the reason I didn't want to tell anybody is because I'd only been up on that mountain a couple times with Ron. In fact, I had only started studying the tapes. It'd only been a couple, maybe 2.5 years since I'd met Ron and had started, this endeavor. But my ex-wife was biking out here very close to Kansas City, out in the conservation area. And she had seen a bear footprint. And she had known that Stevie and I had been out there, and we'd been looking around, and that we'd been up on that mountain. So she took a picture of that and told me where it was. So I took Mandy. Ron might remember Mandy. She was my old girlfriend at the time. I took her out to this place, to this conservation area. And we were just driving out on and anyway, what I was saying is why I didn't want to tell a lot of people is because I had only been doing it for 2 or 3 years. And I knew people I had met in the research community that had been doing it for 40 years and never had nothing happen to them. So I thought that if I went out and started talking, oh, hey, yeah, I saw one, blah, 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 that I would sound ridiculous talking about this to people that never had anything happen. So, but anyway.
Right.
She and I were in my old Ranger pickup truck, and we're just going out on this little access road that cuts cuts the conservation area right in half, and we're just going out there really relaxing. And she was total skeptic. She was a complete and total skeptic. That's why one of the reasons I took her. I said, look, I'm going to take you out there where we think there's some things going on out there. Well, it turns out, and I didn't know it at the time, it was opening day for archery season. For deer hunting archery season. And so I'm going down this, and so all of it was full of archery hunters, and they were out. And of course, the archery hunters, they have all of their tree stands and stuff like that. So I'm going down this road, and I see way a couple hundred yards ahead of us, I see two pickup trucks parked there. And I knew from past experience that very near to that is a couple of these tree stands. So in my mind, I'm seeing those pickup trucks way down there. I'm going, okay, well, there's going to be hunters up there. And just as that thought crossed my mind, I see that the biggest land mammal that I've ever seen in the wild run right across in front of our car, in front of my pickup truck, probably 40, 50 yards ahead. And he was on all fours. He was on all fours. This is the thing that was weird about it. But he was so massive. He was so tall. And he ran across the road from one side of the bushes to the other side in less than 2 seconds. It was like, and he was running like boom, 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 and he was gone. And I drew a picture later when I got home of what I saw. And I asked Mandy about it, But he was looking away from us. He didn't see us. He ran across that road looking away from us right up to where those tree stands would have been. So that's why I think he just didn't even notice we were coming. We were coming very slow, not in a hurry, not making much noise. Boom, boom, boom. He ran across there so fast. And I remember his shoulders were so much higher than his rump. His rump was way below, which obviously makes you realize that his arms are much longer than his legs. And I stopped the car. I stopped the car immediately, and I look over at Amanda. I said, "Did you see that?" And she said, "That deer had the biggest butt I've ever seen." That was her reaction, because she still, in her paradigm, she could not allow for it to be a Bigfoot. She said, that deer had the biggest butt I've ever seen. I said, "Mandy, that was not a deer." I said, "Did you see a neck?" She said, "No." "Did you see a neck with a head?" She said, "No." I said, "That was bigger than any deer." She said, I know. So, yes, we both saw it. She was a complete skeptic. And honest to God, that's the only reason that I really believe that I saw it, is because she was there and I asked her, and she said, "Yes, I saw it." And she was enough of a skeptic that she didn't say, "Oh yeah, I saw Bigfoot." No, to this day, it's hard for her to go there. And that day, I drove right home, and Ron was the first one I called, and I said, "I'm not telling nobody this because nobody else is going to believe me." And I called a local guy who's passed now, Bill Bowen. He's passed on now, but he was the only other guy I talked to about it. So
it's interesting the motion that you made.
Yes.
with your arms, as far as how it was motating across on all fours.
Very much gorilla.
Very much gorilla-like.
Well, it would be like exactly how a human would lope across the road if he was on all fours trying to get across there fast, especially if he had arms that were longer than his legs. We would be like, and trying to hunker down.
Do you think maybe that was, I suppose it's possible. There bears in that area, right?
No, not in this part of Missouri. There are very few bears. There's some down in southern Missouri, but no, there's no way it was a bear. No,
No,
it was
no,
big. It was bigger
I'm
than
not
a
saying that
mule deer.
you could have mistaken
Its
it, but
shoulders were high, bigger than not
what I'm
a
saying,
whitetail. It was bigger than a mule deer at its shoulders.
yeah,
That's what was so. The thing that
yeah,
impressed me immediately was how big it was and how fast.
yeah. I wasn't
Right.
suggesting that you
Uh-huh.
mistaken. What I'm saying is, could it have adopted that posture to get across the road, looked away from
Oh,
you so you didn't see its face in an attempt
who
to
knows?
disguise
Oh,
itself?
I don't put
You know,
anything. Yep.
if I don't go across this road, if I don't go across this road on two
Oh,
legs,
who
they won't
knows?
know
Yeah.
it's,
Oh,
you
I don't.
know,
I won't put anything past them. Like Ron says, I don't believe you can trick them. You can't trick them, but they sure as hell know how to trick you. I'm sure Ron would
yeah,
agree with that, right? Yeah. Yeah, I don't think you can go out with any device or any modern technology or a cage or anything like that and think that you can capture one or trick them or any of that.
I think they think that we think
Yeah,
we're smarter than them.
because we do think that,
They think that we think we're
but we're
smarter than
not.
them,
Yeah,
and we do.
yeah,
but we're not. What I say, once you take 1 foot into those woods, you are no longer on the top of the food chain. You take 1 foot into their territory, believe me, they know you're there. The same way as if one of them took one step into my front yard or backyard, I would know he was there. But you take one step into those woods, and you are no longer on the top of the food chain, even though we think we are, because we got a 30-06. But no, no, no.
right.
So there you have it. I gave it to you, Eric. Oh, now you owe me
You
a
gave
beer,
it to
even
me,
though
and
if
I
you don't drink
appreciate that.
anymore. When I get up there someday, you owe
I'll
me a
buy
good
you one.
Irish beer, right?
I'll
Okay,
buy you one. Hell yeah,
I'm
we got
sure you
plenty of
do,
Irish
bud.
places around here, gentlemen. It's been 2 hours. I could talk to you for another two, but I'm not going to put you through that. Um,
You're welcome,
Thank you
man.
so much for taking the time and working with me, getting this together. Ron, you and Scott both, if you have things going on, if you got conferences coming up that you're going to speak at, and you'd like to promote it, please feel free to do that now.
Okay.
I got a couple. One's in Pennsylvania, I think, and the other's in Tennessee this year. I don't have my calendar, so I can't tell you the dates, but I got something else in August, I think.
Can
I don't keep track of that. I
people
just look at
find
my
out on your
calendar and
website?
say, I better get a plane ticket. They should be able to, but no, they can't. I don't keep up with that. I should, but I
I
don't.
got you.
I should do a lot of things that I just don't. I'm just lazy. I got complacent with all this, almost. But I'm
You've
happy
earned it.
with it. I appreciate you inviting me on tonight too.
Likewise, man. Thank you.
It's always good to see Scott.
You're always welcome here.
Well, thank
You
you,
guys are
Eric. For
always
me, it's
welcome here.
always
It's been
a privilege to be sitting next to this guy, and to be able to talk about the stuff that we do.
Well,
I'm grateful for that.
well. Hopefully,
yeah.
hopefully you guys
Wait a second.
got to say some things that maybe not doesn't always get out there.
Yeah.
Well, my book.
There we go.
A book.
Yep, the Quantum Bigfoot.
My second book.
Yeah, I got your other book right here.
But it's all on my website, ronmorehead.com.
I got my copy right here.
Here's your other one right here. I got it on next to my bed. This is your last.
That's Voice in the Wilderness, isn't it? Oh yeah. Boy.
Yeah. It don't go very far
this
away.
continues on with this one a little bit, but it's anyway. All these are downloadable
mine's
on my
actually,
website too, or you go to the hard copy.
All right, guys.
You're kind of in the dark there. I mean, a little bit.
Yeah, I lost one of my lights. Sorry.
You lost that right when you were talking
Scott, do
about
you
the
have
I
witch.
got this little portable light I put up here just.
That
You're
light
right. Well, it
switched
did,
off right when you
didn't
were
it?
talking about the Native American witch, so that kind of spooked me a little bit.
Those kind of things
Yep.
happen from time to time. It's a little weird.
Yeah.
Scott, what have you got? Anything going on that you want to let everybody know about?
Nothing specific. I'm actually waiting for Jill and Brett are going to make a trip down here to interview me for that same movie that's coming out in the
Awesome.
fall. We've been trying to put
we
that
already did
together
that.
for several months, and no, it didn't work out because we had that snowstorm.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
We had a snowstorm, so they're still trying to get down here, and they're actually going to be in Colorado, and they might even interview Steven. Which would be fun.
Hurry up.
You know, that'd be fun.
I want to see it before I pass on.
I know, yeah.
Or my energetic body changes form.
Oh, come on.
Well, everything is
Stop
energy,
talking like
frequency,
that.
and vibration. Everything in my new form is that.
You're right.
Yep.
Correct.
I agree.
Anyway.
That's correct. Yep.
Gentlemen, thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thanks again, Eric.
Thank you.
You're welcome, Eric.
Yeah.
Take care, man. Call anytime, man.
Thank you, guys.
All right, Blid. See you, Ron. Love you, man.